Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inner Podcast, where you get to embrace your inner nerd. I am your host, Aaron.
And I'm your host, Brandon.
Yeah, I'm your host, man.
I'm trying to find interesting ways to do it every time.
Gotcha.
I'm losing it.
Before we get into anything, I just kind of wanted to preface that as we're recording today, an episode did not go out. We skipped a week, which it's not. I mean, we've got 7 subscribers at the time of recording this video.
Yeah, it's not like it's gonna break anyone's heart.
Yeah,
unless it will.
Then
thanks for caring.
Yeah. But honestly, it's just, it's just one of the things about like doing the whole having to balance work life and so on and so forth. And I personally was just kind of drained a little bit.
Yeah, this past week kind of kicked my ass.
Yeah, I agree. And so when it came to us having to record the episode that was supposed to come out today, I just wasn't feeling it.
Yeah, we kept pushing off like, oh, we'll do it Monday. Oh, we'll do it this day. It got to the point where it's like...
And literally the week prior, I was like, we should make a rule to make the following Monday the latest to record, and we still didn't even do it.
Yeah, so. I like the past couple weeks, I've kind of slowed down on uploading on my channel. Mm-hmm. So I was trying my best to like catch back up, and I'm trying to be as consistent as humanly possible with our situation. So
right,
it got to the point where it's like I could rather spend the rest of my night because it takes me forever to edit like one video.
Yeah.
So I was like, I could rather spend that time editing, or we could record another Innerd episode. I think we can sacrifice one Innerd episode.
Right.
So it's a little selfish, but at the same time, like
it is what it is.
Yeah.
But with that out of the way, Brennan, how are you?
To shorten it, I'm okay. I've had a really long week.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to stay late at work every day.
Yeah.
Because we're short on manpower, and, if I don't help out, then everyone else who's there, they're going to stay even longer. That's not fair to them.
Right.
But it's just been a hectic week, and I'm not going to get into it, but I'm so done.
Yeah, I feel you. I mean, I can't say the same. My week hasn't been that bad, but I get it. I've definitely been there. Which sucks. It kind of goes with what we were just talking about, like having all the real world being on top of ambitions and things we've talked about before. Tons of times.
It's funny. So you kind of bring that up, and I had a conversation with someone at work today, and she was saying that like it got to a point where she kind of gave up on her dream, and she kind of just accepted her situation in life. And I was like, I can't do that. I was like, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be working here forever. I have so many things that I've been dreaming of doing for the past like 13 years. I can't give up.
Yeah.
I've already slacked on it so much already, and I'm 25 years old and I haven't gotten anywhere with it. So
yeah, it's like if we don't at least try to do it now.
Yeah, I made a joke about it, but it's kind of like a understatement of the truth. But I was like, if I spend the last moments on my deathbed not accomplishing any of the things that I wanted to do in my life, I'm pulling the plug early.
Damn. I'm kind of curious. Did she say like what her dream was?
Well, she was saying that she had like an interior design dream, Like she kind of wanted to design the interior of people's homes
Right.
and make like a small business out of it, and it was just something she likes to do. So she thought she could make a career out of it. Um, and everything was kind of like in her favor until like one thing happened. I won't say because it's no one's business. It's barely my business, but one thing happened and it kind of just went downhill from there.
Hmm.
And she kind of just gave up on even trying because everything was like against her. I told her, I was like, I don't think you should. I think like taking a hiatus, that's fine, but I think you should get back into it because she talks about how much she hates work every day.
Right.
She talks about how miserable she is and all this stuff. It's like you still have time. Do something about it. Like
Yeah.
I personally believe in people living the life that they want to live, not the life that they have to live. And I think about it every day, but I had a conversation with Dad once, like the last time we saw him, and he said, do everything that we can to do what we want to do.
Right.
And I think about it every single day.
Yeah, because I don't want the day to come that I potentially have kids and I have to. I don't want to be in this situation where I have to tell them that like to go do what they want to do with their life, but I didn't do that.
And I'm in that situation.
Yeah.
Like I have Casey and I have the boys, and I don't want them to grow up and be like, hey, I had these dreams. I was so excited to pursue them, but I gave up because I felt like I had to.
Right.
And that's no way to live. And I mean, Casey always tells me, she's like, I want you to pursue your dreams and everything. She's like, I don't want you to give up. And that's good. Like, it's good to have people by your side to do that for you. But it's just, it makes it feel like just how the world works these days.
Yeah.
You have to have that super rare ability of luck to like get you where you want to be. Like I hear about all these people who like during like the pandemic, that's when they decided to take we should have done that, but like taking that time to do like content creating, and they got lucky. Like Call Me Chris, for example, she talks about how she just like for fun just made videos.
Yeah.
And she boomed. And that must be so
See,
nice.
that's the thing, because that I don't want to get too into it,
Yeah.
but that's something I was actually thinking about recently. Is I didn't experience there's more to it than what I'm about to say, but I didn't experience COVID the same way other people experienced COVID.
Same.
There's so many people that were like, they had careers or they had jobs or school and all these like very specific situations where COVID, whether it affected them directly or indirectly, pulled them out of their routine. Whilst that didn't happen to me. I was working at Home Depot at the time. I still had to go to work the next day.
Same.
I had to put a mask on and I had to deal with customers on a regular basis. We had to monitor lines and how many people were in the store on top of doing all of that stuff. And then going back home to my same routine. So like my life wasn't affected. Even though I wanted to do content creation and I wanted to do the things we've talked about, I still had the same routine and I didn't have that break that some other people kind of had.
I remember working at Balanced Body and COVID hit, and I was still getting up at 5 a.m, getting to work at 6,
Right.
coming home at 5, being exhausted, and people are like, oh yeah, during the pandemic I just stayed home the whole time. How did you afford that? Like, who took care of you?
Yeah.
Where'd all this money come from? Because I was still struggling.
I mean, some people were working from home.
Well, yeah, but like we all lived in a house together. Me, you, and a few other people. And we still struggled. Yeah. Like they were all like, oh yeah, we got bills to pay and everything. And other people around the world are like, oh yeah, we just stayed home. What the heck? Like,
yeah, I didn't get that option.
Like the only all the energy that I had during COVID was to play video games. and that was still exhausting. Like we had like a whole art room and everything. Barely spent any time there.
Right.
Too tired. And working at, I'm kind of like throwing them under the bus, but working at Balanced Body is a grind. So that sucked.
Yeah. Anyways, so we do have a very specific type of episode we want to do today,
Yeah.
but I figured it won't take a bunch of time unless it will. So I figured maybe we talk about. I had a couple things written down, kind of like news, kind of stuff that's come up recently.
A few things have happened since last time we did an episode.
A lot has happened.
Yeah.
At least since the last time we've done any like
Some good and some very unfortunate.
right. I kind of just wrote down a few things that I personally think we would find notable or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I won't go through all of them. I'll kind of just pick a couple. Literally today, today being April 3rd, a trailer or a teaser for the new Naked Gun movie came out.
What?
So Liam Neeson
What?
is the son of the original character.
No way. Liam Neeson?
Yeah.
Out of all people?
It's very odd. It's funny though. I wish there was like a full trailer so we could kind of see what kind of humor they're going to tackle, but it's from what they have so far, they're not holding back anything. Because the way the trailer goes or the teaser is there's a bank robbery happening. And while like the robbers are like getting the people down on the ground and whatnot, a little girl strolls in. This girl's like 3 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
And the robbers are like, what the hell? There's a little girl. And she takes off her quote unquote mask, like Mission Impossible style, and it's Liam Neeson's head.
Oh no.
And he says some line, and then he like stands up taller, and it's Liam Neeson in a little girl, like schoolgirl outfit.
Oh god.
And so he takes them down. It's really campy looking. And then there's a little thing of him, tributing to his dad, like up on a wall because he's junior, so he's got like the same name, and he's following in his dad's footsteps because it's still the police squad from the original movie, or movies, and they kind of go through a couple different characters because they're like descendants of the original characters, and it gets to O.J. Simpson's portrait up on the wall, and you just see this like young black cop kind of like look at the camera, and he's like, no. And that was the end of the teaser.
Dude, that's funny. It's so weird because like I've been curious if like movies like that were ever going to be made again.
Yeah.
Because those are kind of like along the same lines as like scary movie or like superhero movie. And I miss those.
Yeah, but it's like instead of the act or the horror parodies, it's like action hero parody.
It's kind of like it's kind of like a parody of Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapon, or like just spy movies.
Yeah,
like the
more Lethal Weapon just because like it's more police stuff and
yeah, they do it in the sense of policemen, but he goes on crazy adventures like James Bond would or whatever.
That's so crazy.
I know. I'm really excited for it.
It kind of makes you wonder, like, oh, are they gonna do like another scary movie or like
there is another scary movie coming out.
There is?
Yeah. Marlon Wayans confirmed it like a little bit ago.
Haunted House, that's the other one I was thinking of. I was like, there's another one.
Oh, yeah.
But those are kind of like not just horror, but the footage, the capture
found footage.
Found footage.
Yeah, kind of like Paranormal Activity.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So there was that. God, I was just really excited when I saw that because you and I used to watch those with Dad all the
Binge
time.
watch those.
Right.
Those were great.
The first thing that was coming to mind is the, um, gosh, I want to say it was like, I'm blanking on how many naked, there was 3 Naked Gun movies, right? Of the originals.
A part of me wants to say there was more, but I can't.
I'm thinking
remember
of
off
the
top my
scene
head.
of when there's like throughout the whole movie there's been the big, very broad, muscular blonde lady that's like very attractive.
Oh,
And
I was gonna bring up the same thing.
And there's a point when like her skirt comes down and you just see a shadow of like a wiener.
like they're getting ready, and she's like slowly like taking her clothes off, and they fall, and he's so excited. And then in the shadow, you just see this like cucumber size.
Yeah. And he's just like, ugh!
Or this scene where I feel like I'm getting this mixed up with a different movie, or maybe they did it in both. But when he's like driving around town and there's attached to his car is like a bunch of things, including like the small play structure with like kids saying like, "Please, Mister,
Yeah.
What, that was Naked Gun, right? Or was that superhero movie? Or did they do it in both? A part of me wants to say they did it in both.
No, I know what you're referring to in superhero movie, but it is Lethal Weapon.
Yeah,
That part or Naked Gun. Sorry,
but
but
kills me. Just him driving away, and it's like an entire town's
yeah,
worth
and
of
you
things.
see like the, oh my gosh, wasn't there like a nun
I think
like
so.
on like a doctor's bed or something like that,
Something like
being
that.
dragged?
And then the little swing, just please, Mister, stop.
But
Kills
no,
me.
those movies are great.
Oh my gosh.
And then another thing that came up. So there's been a bunch of Nintendo news.
Yeah.
A bunch. They're talking about like the Switch. They're talking about games that are going to be released. How the new Mario Kart World is going to be like $80.
Jesus.
I know, it's crazy. But one of the first things that was announced like a couple days ago or so, the new Metroid Prime game.
Oh yeah.
Metroid Prime Beyond.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it. I don't know if I'm going to end up having a Switch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been able to live without a Switch for a really long time, but
yeah.
I like the idea of playing Metroid Prime.
Yeah.
Because I still have a copy of the first Metroid Prime for GameCube.
Yeah.
And it's very reminiscent of Metroid Prime that I know, and it's got like that eerie tone to it.
Yeah.
They're adding some more mystical aspects to it, like Samus gets like powers this time around.
Oh.
Like more mystical powers. There's even a point when she gets like a new armor set that looks kind of biomechanical a little bit. That's kind of reminiscent of Dark Samus.
Oh.
But unless that's a new version of Dark Samus, but she was colored more like how Samus is.
Right.
There's kind of a new look now where instead of it being like the red, gold, and green, there's kind of a new thing they're doing with purple.
So kind of going back to old school.
Kind of. So she's like red, a muted gold, and then like purple lights all over her. Even before she gets her new suit.
Weird.
New enemies. The only thing I would say though, and seeing kind of how a lot of other Switch games have evolved, especially for ones that have been announced for the new Switch, graphically, it obviously looks really good, but it doesn't look that different from like the first or like the original.
I'm sure if you
Prime.
put them side by side.
Maybe, but when she was kind of like running around, like shooting things, I was like, I don't know. Maybe I'm remembering Metroid Prime differently, but that doesn't look that different.
It might might be the point.
Like, yeah, it does kind of have like a lot of Nintendo stories or games. It kind of has a more video gamey look to it.
Yeah,
but I feel like Metroid Prime would be like that opportunity they could have taken to maybe do a, I guess what you could call like a AAA game look.
Yeah.
Like if Nintendo, for whatever reason, wanted a story to make look more graphically impressive,
Yeah.
I feel like Metroid would be a cool opportunity to do that
Mm-hmm.
because she could kind of be like their competitor to like sci-fi shooters and stuff.
True.
But at the same time, there's kind of a fun and charm um, to her sticking to where she belongs, kind of like Mario and Donkey Kong and stuff like that. But yeah, so that was interesting. There's not a lot about it. I wish I could say more, but
I mean, there's another Nintendo announcement that they made. Like as far as video games go,
uh-huh.
the Dusk Blood.
Yeah,
It's FromSoft's like new installment.
that's going to be Switch exclusive.
Yeah, I was watching Jacksepticeye's reaction to it because in the first moment where it shows like the girl's hand sliding down the dude's hand, he thought it was Bloodborne 2.
A lot of people did.
And then he got very confused as the trailer went on, and it looks like you play as like a vampire.
See, that's the thing, because a vampire protagonist would have been really interesting for a Bloodborne.
Or like a
2.
vampire-like creature.
Yeah, because Bloodborne already kind of has something to do with, from my understanding, I don't know a lot about Bloodborne, but
It
already
is heavily blood
Yeah.
related. Like that's the whole reason why like even the game's called Bloodborne is
Right.
because the world revolves around blood.
So kind of having the world from a perspective of a different type of character. So instead of it being like a hunter, it'd be a vampire.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And they could even make it to where one of the bosses is a hunter.
Yeah.
Like a more like old school hunter who maybe doesn't agree with the idea of maybe a vampire being a hunter or something like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe you start off as a hunter and then turn into one, and then he's like, well, you're a monster through and through. Like, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hunt you.
Yeah, similar to the new Elden Ring, what is it called? Night Rain?
Yeah, something like that.
It would have been... Because Night Rain is a spin-off to Elden Ring. It would have been... Was this called Dusk Blood?
Dusk Blood.
Would have been a cool opportunity for them to not only do a spin-off, but like an unsaid spin-off, so that maybe that's what they are doing, and it tying to Bloodborne in some way.
Maybe.
So that for players who are like super invested in Bloodborne and play this game, there's like a point as they explore that it becomes apparent that it is Bloodborne.
I think some fans might get really irritated at that idea though, because of how long they've been asking for a Bloodborne 2.
And it ends up being a Switch exclusive.
Yeah. That'd be extremely irritating.
Yeah.
That was the only...
That'd be like if they made another Halo game, but it was a PlayStation exclusive.
Yeah!
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Nintendo person, but there were just some interesting things that they had announced.
Right.
I have a couple others on here. The only other interesting one that I guess we could go through really quick is that they've already announced Space Marine 3.
Oh, yeah.
And
I'm excited for that.
It's crazy to think what they could or would do differently.
I'm hoping that it's a similar game. It's just they're adding on to it.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's what it'll be. Yeah, like they would use a similar engine and just kind of rework and add on to what they've already built and what worked so well.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, like what kind of story are they going to tell? Are they going to keep telling the story of... I'm assuming they would keep telling the story of Titus.
Yeah.
Maybe Because the first game, the main antagonists were orcs,
Yeah.
and in the second, they were Tyranids. Maybe they'll do like Necrons, or
That would be cool.
the Eldar would also be really cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I just thought that was kind of cool. Um, anything you want to?
I'm gonna look something up real quick because I heard news about it and I feel like it was very briefly gone over, but I'm not gonna say anything until it's confirmed.
Oh, while you're looking for that, I do want to bring up one more thing.
Okay.
As of today, while I was waiting for you, I watched the first episode of Devil May Cry.
Oh, right, it's out.
Yeah.
And
I'm not impressed. So again, maybe I only watched the first episode.
is there more out?
Yeah, all 8 episodes are out.
Oh, sick.
I'm sure there's much more to see. From my understanding, each episode's around like 30 minutes. The issues I have with it is we've played. Okay, I've played every Devil May Cry besides Devil May Cry 5.
Okay.
But I'm very familiar with Devil May Cry.
Right.
But first off, and this is the most obvious thing, this version of Dante is clearly inspired by Devil May Cry 3's Dante.
Okay.
Like much younger. He's like super charismatic. He's like
Which could be said about all Dantes, but
yeah, but the first 2 games he was very quiet. He did have like
they were kind of trying to like find Dante.
He had like punchlines and stuff and
Yeah.
some cutscenes, but he wasn't the same Dante that they found in Devil May Cry 3.
Yeah.
But there's even a point that they show in every single trailer where at some point his shirt gets like torn off and like his chest is exposed, and so it is very Devil May Cry 3.
Right.
But the thing is that the world doesn't feel like Devil May Cry. There are demons. There's a ridiculous amount of exposition thrown into the first episode. In 30 minutes, they've pretty much explained everything that's going on.
Okay.
And they've set everything up in the first episode, which is like, I guess to some degree it's okay, but in a 30-minute segment, how much detail they threw in there felt like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like there didn't feel like there wasn't much to learn or, much to be desired at all. Some of the writing is mediocre at best. Again, this is all subjective. This is just my opinion.
Yeah.
This is someone who's played Devil May Cry and went into this as a Devil May Cry fan. They've done a Devil May Cry anime before.
Yeah.
Aesthetically, the original one was much more Devil May Cry.
Definitely disagree. I binge watched the anime maybe like 6 months ago.
I would just say compared to this one, aesthetically.
But that's the thing is that when I was there, when I watched the original one, there was nothing Devil May Cry about it at all. The only thing that was Devil May Cry was Dante.
Okay, again, aesthetically. Like looking at it, it's got like more, I don't want to say dated, but it's got an older style anime look to it.
Well, yeah.
Whilst this one's kind of got like that Netflix Castlevania look to it.
Okay.
Which the original kind of has in its favor because it's grittier looking. Well, this one's
Yeah.
really colorful and like flat looking characters and some very uninteresting looking characters.
Well, I would still kind of I mean, aside from Devil May Cry 1 and 2, I would still affiliate it more with a more colorful environment just because of how like outrageous and odd like the gameplay and the environments and the demons were, because like they ranged from like dolls to like weird shit. But like the original show, like yes, it was dark and gritty, but there was almost no demons ever.
Okay, so to go off of that though, again, I don't know what it's going to be in later episodes.
Yeah.
From what I've seen from trailers, a lot of the demons that they've shown in trailers are all in this first episode. And
I actually haven't watched a lot of the trailers. I was trying to like hold back from that.
what was I getting at? But so you know how another thing about like how in like the 80s, maybe not so much the 80s, like the 90s and 2000s, if there was ever, sometimes there would be stories that were very fantastical or sci-fi or whatever, and they would try to make a movie out of it, but they would bring that story into like a modern day setting.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I wish I had an example from the top of my head, but for some reason I can't think of one. Does that make sense though?
I don't know.
I
feel
don't
like
know.
we're gonna spend too much time thinking about it.
Yeah, I maybe when you watch the show you'll see what I mean. But I wish that when they were writing the show, they wrote the situation and the plot in a similar setting as the games, where like all of the demon like stuff and what have you is happening in the world,
Yeah.
kind of almost, because in this story the whole plot, which again isn't a spoiler because it's in the trailers, is that like this is before like some smaller demons have like come into our realm,
Mm-hmm.
and all of the big ones have stayed behind because in layman's terms they can't fit.
Okay.
And so there it's leading up to like demons crossing over.
Right.
But I kind of would have liked a story where they had crossed over,
Okay.
because I don't know, there's just something really weird about a lot of very normal people and politicians and secret agent groups and stuff talking about demons, and they do that thing where it's like there's one character who's talking about demons, and the person that they're telling it to is like, demons, that sounds crazy, you're just making stuff up.
Right.
Or they kind of do that meta thing where in the first like 5 minutes it's like a talk show or like a political talk show, and then a podcast talking about that political talk show, and an actual like entertainment talk show talking about that podcast,
Yeah.
and then and all of them talking about like demons, there's demons in this world, that's crazy. And there's something like it's a little too on the nose. That feels a little corny.
I don't know. I mean, I'll have to watch it to.
I'm gonna watch the whole show
Yeah.
and give it the benefit of the doubt, but just as of right now, I'm not impressed. Dante is not really entertaining at all to me in the first episode. And they did, again, something that was in the trailer, they brought into this episode that should have felt like a really cool reveal, ended up, to them, I think what they were trying to go for was like a gotcha moment to like save a potential reveal for later, but it felt kind of just lame. I guess I'll just let you watch the show and we can talk a little bit more about it then.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So real quick, honestly, I thought you might have brought this up, and it probably should have been something brought up first so that we could kind of like not save the sad stuff for the begin or last. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, a very well-known actor, Val Kilmer, passed away.
Yep.
On April 1st, which is the reason why I thought it was a lie. I was like, oh, okay, April Fools.
That would have been a really fucked up April Fool's
people
joke.
have most certainly done that before. And that's the thing is I saw maybe 2 people bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, usually when a well-known celebrity passes away, everyone talks about it. Yeah. I saw 2. So I was like, oh, it's fake. Has to be.
It might just be because Val Kilmer, because in his, the later portion of his life was very to himself and he was kind of living his life and whatnot.
But he still has like a name
I
to
know.
cinema. And I mean, I'm personally, like, there's a lot of celebrities who did pass away that should have gotten more recognition. But, it's like, especially for just how brief it seemed when the news was announced,
mm-hmm.
It was like, if this is true, it's a little sad.
Yeah.
But, he had a lot of great roles. And it's unfortunate that, because he went through a lot of shit in his life. But I don't know. It's sad, but I don't want to like get on to it too much. But
he will definitely be missed.
Yeah, he will.
We appreciated what he did. Yeah, I mean, I it's something else again. I wish I had more to say.
Yeah,
but all the love to his family and loved ones. But it's a tragic loss for sure.
Yeah.
Anyways. Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't bring that up. So today, Brandon, how far are we in so far? We're about 40 minutes in. So today we're doing a little bit of a different episode.
Yeah.
So in the last episode that I kind of hinted that this is something that hopefully we'll be able to do going forward, just from time to time.
Right.
But to kind of set this up, I mean, it's going to be in the title of the episode, but just to set this up, you and I, for a very long time now, we are like to come up with creative like stories and create characters and like you create like characters that are designed for a potential comic book universe.
Right.
I'm in the process of writing a book.
Well, yeah, I was going to bring that up too. It's like it started off as a project that, I'm in the process of writing the same story but for 2 different medias. One in a comic book fashion and one in a novel fashion.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
But it's something we like even
we're just very creative people.
Just on a regular basis, it'll be like, oh, I thought of a really cool story idea today, and we'll could sit there for hours talking about it.
Most of them take place rather in the shower or during long car rides while blasting music.
Yeah. And something that came up quite a while ago now is when we watched The Crow.
Yeah.
2024, starring Bill Skarsgård. We were just thinking, like, we've already said everything that we need to say about that movie. But one note that kind of had a ripple effect is we said that that movie could have been damn near identical. Actually, it could have been the exact same if they just changed the names of the two main characters.
Yeah.
And
Maybe added a little bit more Crow stuff. Like, maybe, like, sped up that process and more of the movie.
but regardless, like even with the stuff that has to do with Eric Draven's origin when he was a kid, like
Yeah.
and seeing the visions of the horse and whatnot, that all could have stayed.
Yeah.
And it could have just represented something a little different. And it still would have been just as interesting.
Right.
And if anything, would have just been a nod to the original Crow comic book.
Right.
But that kind of led us to think, and we kind of did an exercise.
You want to tell them why we did the exercise? Like, what initially motivated it?
What?
So, you got a comic book of
Yes.
Crow, like, because for those of you who don't know, the Crow isn't just one person. There's many people who have been the Crow.
Right.
And you have a comic book of one who takes place in, like, modern day Japan.
Yeah.
Or maybe a little futuristic. I don't know.
It's a little futuristic, but it's prefaced that it's modern day.
But, like, when you say that out loud, that sounds sick.
Yeah.
Like a Japanese-based Crow.
Right.
But then you read that story, and it's so boring.
Yeah, so what I told you and what was kind of difficult for me to wrap my head around is you look at the cover.
Yeah.
And it's this really cool painterly style. I thought it was Eric Draven or like a retelling of him because it looks just like him.
Right.
It's the long hair. It's the same makeup on his face. Like he doesn't even have the white painted on his face. It's just the same decal around his eyes and mouth.
Yeah.
He's got like the bandages around his arms. No shirt. I was like, that must be Eric Draven. No, it was just a guy who had long, not even dark hair. He has like long, kind of dirty brown hair, maybe even reddish hair. And he's got glasses. He's a scrawny white guy who's married to a Japanese woman in Japan. And her family works for like this advanced corporation that's like their CEOs trying to use technology to be immortal.
Mm-hmm.
And she finds this worker, which is the main character's girlfriend or wife. And she's like, I want her body. So they kill his wife. And it's been a while since I've read it. But from what I remember, he like stumbles in after they've just killed her and they're like dragging her body away, and he catches them, and they, similar to the movie, the original Crow movie, they throw him out the window, and where he lands, he ends up getting buried there, just like right next to the street. He gets buried there, and I think it says like a year later he comes back, like within the span of a page or two. It really fast tracks it. Like he lands there, they bury him there, and then he crawls out of the ground there, and his hair's dark, and he's got like dark around his eyes and his mouth, and he's got no shirt on, and he kind of looks like Eric Draven.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's just so lame.
Yeah.
Like all of the things they could have done in utilizing the Japanese setting and so on and so forth. And it just kind of, like you were saying, led me to be like, hey, someone approaches you, they're like, Brandon, if you could write The Crow, start from scratch, or just like a character who becomes the Crow, and you have all the freedom in the world, what kind of story would you write?
Right.
And so we both did that. We So the exercise was, if you could write the crow, what would you do?
Yeah.
And these are the stories that we came up with.
Yeah. I specifically stuck to, not only did I, well, for two reasons. I stuck to the premise of using like Japanese
Yeah.
because I personally was like, there's so much you could do with that.
Right.
And they missed it, so maybe I could just redo it. So that's where I went. And so, yeah.
So with that being said, do you want to do yours first?
I don't know. I'm kind of nervous because I don't know. Because I mean, I've kind of told you my idea before. Like we've gone over it
Yeah.
a few times. So I'm curious about yours, but I also don't like. Another reason why I want you to go first is because I don't know if I did too much or too little. So I kind of want to see what you did, so I know if like I went too far.
It really doesn't matter what's considered too far or too little. All I was saying is you don't have to do like the first act, second act, third act.
Yeah,
It's really just like a detailed synopsis of like the pitch.
Right.
But it's not a 30-second pitch. It's just a pitch.
Right.
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
So my story, or my version of The Crow, takes place in the late 17th century in Salem, Massachusetts. Just a quick little background. I went, just in case, because you'd think they've done this before, I went through all the different crows.
Yeah.
Never once have they done it. They have not visited the Salem witch trials.
Oh.
Which is crazy. You'd think that's like where every writer would want to go to with the Salem or with the Crow.
Right.
But no, they've done some historical crows. Most of them are recent history or modern day. All very, very interesting situations and very different characters. There's even a line of crows that all are very specifically in France.
Mm-hmm.
The stories are called The French Crow.
Yeah.
It's very odd. But anyways, so like I said, it takes place late 17th century, so 1692, 1694, around that time. So we have the main character, let's just name him Todd.
Okay.
And we'll name his wife or to-be wife Emera.
Okay. He got the shittiest name, and she's got this like, Emera.
Well,
I'm Todd.
well, hear me out.
No, I'm just kidding.
So, Todd and Emera, they live in a small town, Salem, Massachusetts, or more specifically, it's just around the time when people are going crazy thinking that like witches are infecting their towns and plaguing their people and hexing families, so on and so forth. So,
you said a curse word. You're a witch.
So essentially what ends up happening is just like what actually happened in the Salem witch trials, and they've even written stories. The Crucible, right? That's the story I'm thinking of that takes place in the Salem witch trials.
Crucible.
Yeah, anyways. So essentially it's a very similar situation where she's beautiful and she's the kind of person that like a lot of people are drawn to, and it just pissed off the wrong kind of people. And they frame her and they kind of put it on her that she's a witch.
Yeah.
And Emera even gets to the point where she runs away and she tries to hide, and she's trying to get away because, obviously it's not true and she doesn't deserve it and whatnot. And Todd, he's back at home and he's like trying to tell people that like it can't be true or whatever. And they finally catch Emera and they bring her back. They put her up on, a display, and they end up burning her alive.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there and he's like crying and he's like on his knees, like begging that like they bring her down and that they stop what they're doing. And in front of her while she's burning, they end up like beating him down to death because they're like he's a witch lover or whatever.
Yeah.
And so while he's watching her die, she's watching him being pummeled to death.
Yeah.
And the worst part is that they leave him there. They leave him in the middle of the town, in the street, where his body's decomposing and left to rot in front of everyone.
Yeah.
Months, almost a year goes by, and he's still left there. Animals have pulled at his body, and he's been dragged around a little bit. And one day, the same, let's name her Mary. Mm-hmm. Mary, she's like she's like a barkeeper's wife that is a little older, and she's kind of one of the people that originally got jealous and started this whole thing.
Yeah.
And Mary's she's kind of the new pretty lady in town or whatever. And she's kind of just walking across the street and she notices that Todd's body's gone. And she's like, that's odd, because there's nothing left. Yeah. It's completely gone.
Right.
And she kind of is just like, oh, well, maybe some animal was finally like dragged it away or something like that.
Yeah.
And she even just in passing conversation brings it up to her husband. And he's like, his body's gone. That's weird. And that kind of gets passed around a little bit. Like, oh, the body's gone. Did anyone see it get dragged off? Like, they're kind of joking about it. Like, oh, was it a bear? Was it a wolf?
Yeah.
What got to him? And everyone's like, no. No one's seen it. No one's seen a bear. Even one kid's like, no, I was like up with this person really late, and it almost becomes like a conspiracy amongst the town, and everyone's talking about it. Since this time's gone, more time goes by, and they've even killed a couple other girls, accusing them of being witches. And so a third girl comes around, and not only does she disappear halfway through the lynching, but ever since this day, when this girl disappears and they're like, how did she disappear? People start disappearing and getting killed and whatever, one by one. Mm-hmm. So it's not told directly from the story of this crow. It's told like from the perspective of the people. And like one guy who it'll be like, oh, the guy who tied the girl up on the post, he'll be found with his guts hanging out one morning, or the next day another person would be on their farm and slaughtered like a cow would be.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. And it's gruesome, and each day it's worse and worse, and each day it's more and more people, and sometimes it's people they wouldn't expect. Like maybe it'll be like a new person comes to town and is like settling in and sees, I don't know, someone that was involved in one of the lynchings like firsthand get torn apart by what they could only describe as the Grim Reaper.
Right.
And they become more fearful of this entity who they think a witch sent on to them or whatever, when really it's Todd.
Yeah. One
night we finally see like these two guys in like the slaughterhouse that are kind of like, like cutting open pigs and caught deer and stuff like that. And out in the rainy like doorway is just this broad man who's got like this torn apart, like rag of a cloak that's hanging off of him. And he does have like a sickle that he pulled off of someone, which kind of gives him that kind of rugged makeshift Grim Reaper look.
Yeah.
And same thing, he's stronger, he's merciless, and does not hold back. And guys who are twice his size would go after him, and he can tear him in half.
Right.
And then it finally comes to the point where everyone's dead besides Mary, and she makes an attempt to leave and doesn't let her go.
Yeah.
But it would almost be more of like a slasher.
That'd be pretty cool though, and it makes the targets different too. Like,
Yeah.
usually it's like a group of people, but now it's
Yeah, and then when he finally, when the story does kind of shift to him, you find out that Emera wasn't a witch, but her mom was. And her mom brought Todd back to life to take revenge on Emera.
Yeah.
Because there was, quote unquote, enough of his body left to put him back together. So when you kind of see him in full light, his body looks like it grew back, but like skin looks different in some places than it does others. And he's got scarring all across him, and he's just really gross and beat up looking.
Yeah.
And some of that darker, like crow aesthetic, like around his eyes or his face, would be ashes from other lynchings and bruising across his body. So he'd have like that dark face and then a lot of like pales and purples all around his body
Right.
to really make him look like a Grim Reaper of sorts.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought it'd be a funny twist of like not only is the perspective from other characters, but there actually was a witch that was highly involved in the whole thing. They just got the wrong person.
Yeah.
And it ended up being to their own fault or demise, but
Right.
that's pretty much my pitch.
Very cool. That'd be a sick movie.
I think it would be a sick movie.
I had like this image in my head of kind of like a one shot scene. What are those called? A oneers or like
Yeah.
But it takes place from one end of the village or the town, and it'll end on the opposite side, but it's just one linear street or road or whatever. And it's just going down the street, and it's showing different people running away or getting caught, and then it would like pan back to him every now and then and show him like kind of like walking with the camera and like just being really mad. But like they never really like say who it is, but just looking at him, it's very clear like who it
like
is.
to the audience they could figure it out,
right? And
to people who only look at him for like seconds at a time, they can't.
And they'll just like they like in that moment, like they just feel his rage and his hate, and it's like he doesn't care if these are women or whatever. Like the whole town was involved.
Yeah,
they all did it. They all killed his wife for what?
Yeah,
because she was beautiful,
right?
Because they were happy, and like it's so jacked up, but in the like the right way for a Crow story,
right?
And he has like every reason to just not care anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it works really well.
And I do think the one thing though to give him some form of humanity, kind of like what you said, like the whole town was involved, is there would be kind of like that subplot of that one new person in the town or whatever, and that's the one person that's like completely safe.
Yeah.
But the downside is that what they have to witness is horrifying.
Yeah.
But maybe they would end up being able to confront him or console him at some point, and he's able to kind of show a little bit of his old self, or whatever, or tell this character why he is the way he is or where he came from, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But What the thing is that I was thinking about getting to the end of it is that the big thing with a lot of these stories is that they usually come to like a very peaceful romantic end in some way, like a bittersweet kind of end. Like, for example, Eric Draven, at the end of his story, he's killed the gang members and whatnot,
Right.
and he ends up crawling back to Shelley's grave where he can finally be with her again. But because Emra was burnt and, you know, cremated, essentially, what he ends up doing is once he's killed the last person and he convinces this new person in town to run, he burns the whole town down and himself along with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he, in a very spiritual way, can kind of be deteriorated the same way that Emera was.
Right.
And also getting revenge for her and whatnot. And then the mom is like off to the distance, kind of sad but proud that he was able to, do that for her daughter.
Right.
There's obviously more to it, I'm sure. Like if I really like sat down and figured it out.
It has enough to like legs to stand on to actually like make a full-fledged story out of it.
Yeah, and what's always cool about The Crow or like the different versions of The Crow is you don't have to worry about things being stretched out. You can kind of just tell the story as it is and have it very self-contained, and
You also don't have to worry about continuity.
yeah, because once they're done, they're done.
Yeah, like you don't have to worry about like, oh, does this connect to another one, or like how does a previous or future Crow affect this one?
Yeah.
Like with other characters like Black Panther, for example, like every Black Panther gains, another ancestor, and like, there's tons of other Black Panthers in the past.
Yeah.
Moon Knights are also like better than the previous one.
Right.
Spawns are in some way, shape, or form. A spawn is informed of the tales of past spawns.
Right.
And just recently now they work together. So like there's always some kind of like connection. But like with crows, it's kind of just like, no, I found someone in pain. I'm going to bring them back to life real quick, have them take out their vengeance, and then kill them off.
Yeah. And what's great is like it can be any point in history, as long as like you're telling that story of like true love and the revenge. And
but it could also take on different forms too. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be like me and my wife or my girlfriend or anything, like, because there was like one story, I could be wrong, but I think there's one crow who's like a little girl and she takes vengeance on her family.
Like, so her and her parents get killed.
Yeah.
And even though she comes back to life and she does have powers, the more actiony part of the story is that there's a cop who is investigating the family's murder,
right,
and finds the girl, and he's kind of like her vessel of revenge. So he ends up helping her find all these people and take them down and whatnot.
Yeah.
Even though she's, so you're right. It doesn't have to be like a husband and wife or lovers or whatever. It's like as long as if it's like a true bond and
right,
love or friendship.
Even one of the terrible Crow movies that came out is about the main character and his kid. I think
that's the second Crow movie. Yeah. The biker guy,
when they like drowning.
It's him and his son. Yeah.
Yeah. So as long as it's just like a like true like love kind of bond thing. Yeah. Yeah. Very, very cool. I'd watch that movie. Or, I mean, it doesn't have to be a movie, but like that'd be a sick Crow story.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, it also has like it has like the Grim Reaper type vibe as well.
Yeah.
To kind of like blend certain themes together.
Yeah, and I think it would be a fun way to tell like the really gritty nature of the crow, um, but seeing it from the perspective of different characters kind of puts it in perspective. Hopefully, puts it in perspective for them of like them facing their consequences
Right.
and what their their actions coming back to punish them and
Yeah.
whatnot. Similar to It'd be similar to like if there was a Punisher movie that the perspective was from the bad guys or whatnot, and like any kind of revenge style character, but you have it in this kind of supernatural sense, and you can play around with the horror element and whatnot.
Right.
But because it's like, how do you like what kind of situation does that put the audience in where the slasher is the good guy?
Yeah. It literally is just the whole movie is all about perspective.
Yeah.
Like you're seeing it from the point of view of the people who are technically the bad guys, but they seem innocent because they're all being slaughtered.
But in that way, it kind of makes the kills more fun too.
Yeah.
If you're like a horror slasher movie goer or whatever,
Right.
It wouldn't be filmed like a slasher.
You
in the
could
sense
have
where,
moments though where it kind of like has
but
that like
essentially what
homage
I'm
to
saying, yeah, but it wouldn't be as campy or
Yeah.
it would be much more in the very sorrowful, kind of sad crow nature that they typically have.
Kind of like a Punisher thing, like where there's a lot
Right.
of like hatred and anger
Yeah.
behind those kills as well.
It doesn't feel like aimless killing or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, that would be very cool.
Yeah. You want to do yours now?
Yeah. I'm not gonna like just read this off only because I mainly just have this up just so I can refer to people by their names.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is very like half-assed research that I use to like come up with names for certain characters, like because I kind of did this during work.
Okay.
So a lot of the names might not even be accurate. They're just like what I found on the internet to like.
Placeholder names.
Right.
Gives us an idea of who's who.
Yeah, but I did try to find meaning behind their names.
Okay.
So like I know I could be wrong, but in Japan they all have names, but like when you say it out loud, they say their first name second, right? Like they say their last name and then their first name.
I don't know.
Well, I'm not 100% sure if that's the case, but how I wrote them out, that's how I wrote it out, was like their last name and then their first name.
Okay.
But their first names, I made each character first name like a word in Japanese. They're real names, but like they kind of represent something about the character. Like there's like a theme to this crow story.
Right.
And it's a little different. Like obviously like all crow stories, like there's something about them that makes them a little different. But like I wanted to make this one like kind of a stretch, like a unique situation type crow story. So the main character is Arata. There's probably a more proper way to say that. Masamune, but Arata, that name is there's multiple meanings for it, but one of them is bravery.
Okay.
And Masamune is cowardly.
Okay.
So he's the main character, and it's him and his sister Yuki.
Okay.
Yuki is innocence. But basically, so this is a story of two siblings. Yuki, she's the younger sibling out of the two, and she is excelling in a career that she's actually building for herself as a horse racer.
Okay.
And you know, she's making a name for herself. She's kind of making like a brand, and you know, she's going places, but she feels like her journey's being weighed down
Okay.
by her brother. Someone who has spent the last few years spiraling downward through drugs, alcohol, crime, just being in the wrong crowd. Because they had their mother passed away and their dad banished the both of them. And their father even committed suicide just due to like depression and loneliness and losing his children, even though it was his fault. But so, the kid, Yuki, she tried taking her a lot of the beginning of the story would actually be from her point of view. But she did her best to try to like excel in life no matter what went or whatever happened in their life. But her brother wasn't as fortunate, and he kind of used it as an excuse to just become an asshole. But he's supposed to be her guardian. He's supposed to be the one taking care of her. But no matter what they go through, she's still there for him, and she still wants him to be a part of her life. But it finally gets to a point where Arata, the brother, he a lot of the crime that he does is under Koya Tinjiro.
Okay.
And Koya, he's a leader of a Yakuza clan. In this hypothetical story, a lot of the Yakuza clans are kind of like fading away, and what's left is some are like very like noble, some are more crime ridden.
Yeah.
Like the term Yakuza starts to kind of like get mixed with like different types of families.
Loses its meaning a little bit.
Right. But
Yeah.
he's the head of a clan that's a lot more dreadful. But one day Arata, he finally makes the decision he wants to get his shit together for the sake of his sister. She has the potential to go places. She wants him by her side the whole way, through and through. And he wakes up and he's like, you know what, you're right. Like, we're family. We're all we have left of each other. And I don't want to be the reason why you like don't progress or you stop or whatever. So if it means me doing what I need to do for you, I will. And his boss finds out. And his boss is more worried about like, oh, is he gonna like say something to someone, or like is someone gonna find out about his past and start investigating him and myself? I need to take care of this problem.
Right.
And a character named Tawny, who is kind of like a rat in the streets, but he tells Arata, he's like, hey, Koya found out. Like, I would be careful, or like maybe even run.
Right.
But this sends Arata spiraling out of control of just paranoia fuel. And instead of running away, instead of figuring it out, or maybe even like going to the police, or what anyone would do, his not so clear brain tells him that the only way to save himself and his sister, because she's the only one that he's like connected to, is to kill himself. So he does. So unlike most Crow stories where like they're victims, he's under the impression that if he takes his own life, it'll save his sister.
And like kind of solve.
Right, like no one's
Problem.
going to come after her,
Right.
no one's going to go after him, like done.
Right.
So he does. He takes Tawny's gun out of his pocket or his pants, and he offs himself. But he was wrong. Very wrong. He kind of... So I had two ideas of what I wanted to do in between of him dying and him coming back. One does show what happens in the in between, and one doesn't.
Okay.
And I feel like cinematically they would both be very entertaining. The one that doesn't show anything would kind of just be, it would be his grave, and there would be a figure who's watching over, and then when that figure leaves, he comes back.
Mm-hmm.
But it indicates that it's been like years later.
Yeah.
But in the version where it does show, he wakes up in nothingness, black, endless space of just nothingness.
Yeah.
But he's woken up by a I always forget what they're called. I wrote it down. Ah! A geisha. They're like those
Geisha. Yeah.
the fancy women
Yeah.
in Japan who like paint their faces. So there's one standing over him, or like just looking at him, and she's got a crow on her shoulder, and half of her face is like perfection. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful, and the other half is rotten and like a corpse. It's
Okay.
dead. And she says she doesn't give him a name, but if he were to refer to her as anything, it would be pretty. I don't know why, but she it's more of like a, like how I imagined it is like you hear like a bit of loneliness in her voice. She's like, you don't have to worry about my name, but if you were to call me anything, call me pretty.
Mm.
As you like look at her half pretty and half rotten face.
Gotcha.
But she basically tells him that he's not going to heaven, or if like he's not going to an afterlife, he's not going to a hell because he doesn't deserve one. He was a coward.
Right.
And she even tells him what happened to his sister after he'd made his decision.
Right.
And it went the complete opposite of what he expected.
Right.
And I won't get into too much detail, but he is haunted by what happened to his sister.
Yeah.
And not only did she suffer a fate in her last moments of life,
Mm-hmm.
but the fate he was supposed to experience when he died, which was hell,
Mm-hmm.
is what she will be experiencing. His sister will be going in his own personal hell
Interesting.
instead of ascending to what she deserves.
Yeah.
And she's like, this is what you brought upon because of your cowardly actions.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's happening to your sister, and you will remain here in the nothingness. By the way, I did call this Tales of the Cowardice Crow. But anyways, but while he's like sitting there in like marinating in his thoughts, because that's all he has left now, he stops this woman in her tracks, this like specter, and he's like, wait, let me make you a deal. He's like, I'll do anything, but please send us to heaven. And she kind of looks at him a little bit. She's like, fine, she's like, here's the deal. I will bring you back to life for a duration of time. During that time, you will avenge your sister.
Mm-hmm.
You will take out these men. And she even gives him names. These are the men that wronged your sister. And notice every single time she talks about these people, it's his sister. Like, wronged your sister. Like,
Right.
ruined her life.
Because he's not gonna.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's never said. But when they finalize on the deal, she's like, and when this is all over, your sister will go to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Completely passes his brain, but he will not.
Right.
Because when he asked, he still said me and my sister.
Yeah.
Completely, like, he's not being selfless or
Right.
anything. He's being selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Still, in death, he's being selfish.
Yeah.
He's thinking that he's doing the right thing, but he's not. He's doing what he is best for him.
Mm-hmm.
So she makes the deal. She brings him back to life.
It's kind of like almost like a jinn in the sense of like they make a deal, he makes a wish,
But based
but
on what you said,
but
like,
based on the context of things, it's not gonna go the way you
right.
really think it's gonna go.
But like any other Crow story, he goes through this journey of blood and, death, and he like rips these guys a new one.
It would be
And like in his actions are what they were meant to be. Like, you killed my sister, you did this, and in those moments he is selfless.
right.
Like, how dare you do this to my sister, completely avoiding the fact that like he's dead. Like, you didn't have to kill her. You could have left her alone. She didn't do anything wrong. She was innocent. She was pure. She was beautiful. She was amazing.
Right.
But you went out of your way to defile her, to hurt her, to kill her.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm going to do to you. And he doesn't just kill them. He tortures them.
Right.
He makes their last moment hell.
It would be interesting if throughout his story, in moments where he has like time to reflect, this geisha almost tortures him in a way by constantly throwing visions in his head of his sister,
Yeah.
of like when she was beautiful and how she died, and like images of her dying,
Yeah.
and what was happening to her in her final moments, so that he's constantly reminded why he's there.
Right.
And so when he goes to his next target, he's like in the process of like weeping, and he's like just angry and, more violent because he's constantly being refreshed of why he's there.
Yeah, and like as far as like aesthetics go, like not only would he have like the crow by his side all the time, but I thought of this. I kind of went back and forth between a few ideas, but I thought of this cool idea to where his face was like when he's reawakened, his face is almost always hidden, and I'm not sure if there's any particular reason why. I kind of just liked this idea that like after death, he no longer had an identity. So like just cinematically, his face would always be hidden, but he had like this like Japanese style like geisha mask that he would put on, and that mask was always like kind of like an aged white mask, but then on it would have the crow paintings like over the eyes,
Like
and
the tears and
yeah. And I also thought of like his like healing factor and everything, which he would still have, but like the older movies in the comic book, even though he can heal, he would still like tape those parts up and everything.
Well, yeah, because he'll still scar and
Right.
yeah.
But like there's even one point where and it also kind of like puts you under this idea that he's becoming more righteous, because like for example, samurai, they always use their right hand. But he gets his left arm cut off and the wound heals, but his arm doesn't grow back or anything. So he has no choice but throughout the rest of the story to just use his one right arm.
Gotcha.
So it kind of gives you this impression that like things are like going into his favor. Like he's becoming the person he was supposed to be through death. But then after he kills his last victim, the boss of everything, and it's like coming to that conclusion, he falls back into the like just like what he's experiencing. He sees himself back in the nothingness, and he watches his sister's spirit rise from the depths of hell and ascend. But as she starts to ascend, he gets chained down and he starts to get pulled, and he starts like screaming bloody murder, because he wants, like, he misses his sister, and he's like looking at her, and he wants to be with her so bad.
Right.
But as she's ascending to hell, or to heaven, he's being pulled down to hell. And yeah. So it's like a bittersweet ending where like he did get vengeance. She got what she deserved, but he's also getting what he deserved.
Yeah.
Because, and like as he's falling down, he's like, why? Like, I thought we made a deal. And she goes, but in the end, you still were responsible for taking her life. Not them. You. And so he gets pulled down, and so you throughout the movie you still get a lot of that satisfying crow stuff,
Yeah.
and he still did get vengeance,
Mm-hmm.
but he doesn't get to rest in any way. He has to suffer. He has to pay for what he did.
Yeah.
Because in the end, he was still a criminal and he was still a coward. And so, yeah. I did also have an alternate idea for the ending, but it kind of defeated the purpose of like a crow, because crows like usually like die when they're done with their duty. My alternate idea was that because this isn't like a normal situation, his curse was that he had to live the rest of his life as a crow. Not like the bird, but like, you know. But like he would still have to like face evil and stuff. But eventually he would like die. But again, I kind of felt like that defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
I felt like him going to hell was more oddly poetic.
Yeah.
So
Kind of Greek tragedy.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I like it.
I
Story.
Yeah, I feel like it would also be a cool art project too, because I feel like I have a few different ideas of what I thought he would look like.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the ideas is that he would have like a samurai styled like mouth mask,
Mm-hmm.
but something more stylized to him.
You know, it'd be sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, but I wanted there to be a lot of homages to like the old school Crow or like the Brandon Bruce Lee Crow. Like I wanted like her being a horseback rider, like the horse that she would be riding would be like a white horse.
Yeah.
And I wanted him to be a part of like one of those like edgy like street bands, and he'd be like the guitarist. And even just like the way he looks. And I wanted one of the deaths to be a guy who's like he's like cut up and he's like chained to like a wall or something, and at the end, like inside like all of his like open gashed wounds and everything, he pours like gasoline on the guy, and then he walks away and he's just like, is that gasoline I smell?
Something I was thinking about would be kind of cool. I don't know. I'm sure there is, but it'd be really cool if this was a movie. If there was a if kind of on the whole part of him being a little delusional about the situation. So the two sides of him constantly being reminded, like the visions thrown into his head, that is like a contingency for the geisha to be like, we have to. The whole point is that his sister goes to heaven. Have to make sure that he does it.
Yeah.
But that's like motivation, and but there would be another more hidden detail that's like spread throughout the movie. Well, not super hidden, but because he's so delusional and not understanding of what the actual deal is or what the result would be, it'd be cool if there was like a physical manifestation of like an Oni that would be like lurking in the shadows sometimes. Like maybe he would always hear a chain or something, or you'd kind of see like the silhouette of like the Oni mask peering from like a shadow or something, and sometimes he would hear the chain or something and kind of like look over his shoulder and just kind of brush it off. But at some points throughout the movie you'd see the Oni in the background somewhere, kind of telling the audience ahead of time before they get the twist that no matter how this goes, he still goes to hell.
Yeah.
Or he's still damned and whatnot.
Right.
Like the Oni's that symbol of death. That's his or the audience's reminder that like this might not end very well.
Yeah. That would be really cool.
Because it would kind of be along the sides of like the geisha being heaven almost, or like purity, and
Yeah.
the Oni being damnation.
Right, and I don't know if you caught it, but the geisha herself is homage to the original Crow story as well, or like the original comic book. Um, to the cowboy
Oh
with
yeah,
the
yeah,
skull
yeah.
head,
The skeleton
or
cowboy.
yeah,
Yeah.
the skeleton cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
So, like taking something familiar but adding the hint of death.
Right.
So that's why I came up with her, and also that's where like his new identity when he's the crow is like kind of also embodying her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like he would have like the geisha mask that's like crow themed. Um, yeah, but he would really utilize the crow as well.
Yeah.
It like seeking people and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but I would also want to add in that like early 2000s edge to it too.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it would just work really well.
I think that's another big thing about the Crow that's important is atmosphere.
Yeah.
The Salem witch trials, that one's kind of easy in the sense of like all you really have to do is make it. You just make Salem or just whatever this town is look very grungy, and the
Right.
fact that it's kind of at a dark point in history already gives it that feeling of gothic atmosphere almost. But what's cool about this story is that like you can make it during like a fall or wintry season where it's like raining a lot. And
Well, that's yeah, because like it does take place in Tokyo,
yeah.
but I wanted like even the parts that are like extremely lit with like all these like neon lights and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's still pouring rain,
Right.
and it's just a really depressing
Mm-hmm.
vibe and like visuals and atmosphere all together, and like it would always be like blurry or glary because like the world around him no longer matters.
Yeah.
The only thing that's like in focus is his goal, which is like maybe a person he's following or something.
Right.
So it's like nothing else matters anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this. So no matter how much life is like surrounding him, it's just this. So I thought that'd be really cool. But see, and not to be biased, but that's way better than the fucking
The comic book.
yeah.
Yeah. Especially because that comic book, now that I'm like thinking about it, there's even this whole thing about his wife being a ghost and kind of watching over him, and he doesn't like know that she's watching over him.
Yeah.
But she's like I could be remembering this wrong. I think she might even be like a digital ghost.
Oh.
Like because they preserved her body, her consciousness kind of is existing elsewhere.
Yeah, but like when
So in a weird way, she's like. So there. My point is, there was kind of this weird cyberpunk, even though it was like present day or like near future. There was kind of this weird cyberpunkiness to it.
Yeah.
That totally like ruins the atmosphere that we're talking about and like the aesthetic of the Crow.
I feel like even if like hypothetically in the Crow universe, if the future led into like a cyberpunk styled world, there's still a really cool story you could tell with that.
But they didn't do it.
Yeah, they just did it the wrong way.
Yeah.
They were like, hey, let's find some random comic book writer and just make him make a Crow story, whether he wants to or not. And the guy was like, I don't know anything about the Crow. And they're like, just throw something out. A guy dies and his wife dies and he gets vengeance. And then he's like, okay, just shit this thing out.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a bunch of boo hockey, really. But yeah, I like the idea. I think some movie studios should definitely approach us, and we should be making these into movies. I was just kind of curious. I wanted to pull up. So this is kind of making me think of this comment I got This was before the new Crow movie came out. There was this comment when I posted that Crow video
Yeah.
that said the new Crow movie is from the comics or the comic book Crow Wild Justice. It's a new comic book story, which is not true.
Not at all.
It was Eric Draven,
Right.
just a retelling of it. There was another one that was similar that was saying, there was one that was like 27 people come back as the Crow. There was a lot more than that. He says this one feels much closer to Michael Corby's run of the character.
Not even close.
Yeah, no.
It's further away. Brandon Bruce Lee's was like almost spot on.
Yeah.
I would like, obviously there were like some creative changes, but they were also overseen by, the original creator, so they were justified.
This Crow looks more like Alex Corvus than Eric Draven, and I looked up Alex Corvus. Alex Corvus. Hello, Mom. Corvus Crow. It's like it's the one when
He like was
Kirsten Dunst was his like little sister or whatever.
No, I think it was his girlfriend.
Was it? I thought she was his little sister in that movie.
No, I think he was like framed for his girlfriend or wife's death. He went to prison and he got like the death sentence. And
yeah, but he said he looked more like that guy, and it's like
not even close.
I know that's unrelated, but it just made me think of all the weird ass comments I got from that Crow video.
His name's Brandon.
It took me like 5 minutes to do research on all of the Crow comic books that have ever been released, and I found out more than the people in those comments seem to know about the Crow.
Yeah.
Anyways, again, we didn't go super in depth with those. But I think it's a fun exercise for anyone who likes to
experiment with their creative juices.
That, or, maybe there's anyone who listens that writes themselves, or anyone who just likes narrative in any way, shape, or form. I thought it was a cool exercise to take like a pre-existing premise and see what we could do with it on our own.
Yeah.
Not to be like, oh, we can't come up with anything original. We have plenty of original ideas.
Yeah.
But it would be cool if, like, in the future, do, like, similar to, like, you were saying, you brought up Spawn earlier.
Right.
Be like, oh, if you could make a Spawn, like an original Spawn, what would it be? Or...
which I've done.
If you could do the character Grendel. A Grendel that's popped up at some point in history, what would that Grendel be like?
Right.
I don't know. There's just so many options. I'd like to do this in the near future. I don't know. Come up with some kind of character, or
maybe the people in the comments can give us ideas of
that would be great.
Stuff we could throw our
maybe if it ever becomes relevant again, or if it just becomes time. We were doing Assassin's Creed.
That
would be kind of cool. It's like pick a point in history and tell a story of an assassin that exists in that point in history. I don't know if anyone can hear dogs barking, but I apologize.
They're obnoxious.
Yeah. But I think, Brandon, is there anything else you want to?
No, I really like your Crow idea.
And I really like your idea.
Thank you. Um, I don't think there's really much else to say. I mean, sure, when it comes to the Crow, there's a lot you could talk about. But yeah, I'm curious what you guys thought about our takes on the Crow,
Mm-hmm.
and if you guys maybe have rather your own takes on the Crow. Um, Maybe just do the same thing and just leave it into the comments, or if you make a video about it on YouTube or social media, tag us in it.
Or just this exercise in general, if there's something that you guys are interested in, or maybe if there's anyone who's listening that likes to tell their own stories or write or create characters, use that.
We
You
need to
know,
get a guest on here.
we do. But it's like if there's a, like when the spider Sona thing trends all the time, and people are able to be like, oh, if you were Spider Man.
I'm currently writing a fan story based on my Spider Sona.
Cool.
It's actually a lot of fun.
But yeah, that I would encourage doing that. I
Yeah.
think it's fun to just tell stories, even if you don't even do anything with it. It's
Yeah.
fun to just get your brain to work in a different way and find ways to be creative, even if it means being like, oh, if I could tell a different version of, ooh, the Ghost Rider,
That would be sick.
that would be sick. I say that like I haven't already done that, but
Yeah. I mean, we've both made our own versions of the Ghost Rider. I've made my own version of Spawn. We've both done Assassin's Creed.
yeah.
Hell, name a character. We've probably made our own version of it.
I mean, when the Spider Sona thing was trending, we both did that. We
Yeah.
even did whatchamacallit, for my channel when we did that Spider-Man video, we even designed like new suits for Peter and Miles
Yeah.
with like their own little backgrounds to it.
And
That was fun.
it was fun.
I really liked showcase that. If anyone's listening to this and they haven't seen that, go to my channel. Not to like plug my channel, but like go to the
Go for it.
go to the Spider-Man video. It's called 1 month after Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
There's a part, not only do we just ramble about Spider-Man and we talk a ridiculous long time about
The game.
the suits
Yeah.
in the game, but we get to a point where I challenged Brandon. Like we each picked, one of us did Peter, one of us did Miles. If we could design a suit for either of the characters in the game,
Yeah.
for like maybe a future DLC or like the next game, what would it be? Brandon designed his own suit for Peter and different color variations of it, and I did it for Miles, and that was just so fun.
It was. I did. Like it, I can't really describe the outfit. It was kind of like an alternate version of Peter's advanced suit, but a lot more like abstract. But like the main color scheme was like its own thing, not even close to Spider-Man colors. And then there's a Spider-Man and Miles Morales variant of like the color schemes.
Yeah.
And then I even did my Spider Sona color schemes.
Yeah, like the yellow, red, and black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And then my Miles suit was like a quote unquote cosmic horror themed suit.
Yeah.
So even though it doesn't look like that, the premise behind the suit is that this is like a story where it's like a retelling, like a sci-fi retelling of Peter and Miles encountering the symbiote,
yeah.
where they're sent on like a space travel expedition, and they've both got like these high-tech suits on.
It's kind of like if Spider-Man was written by Ridley Scott.
Yeah, and they both go out into space, and this version of like the symbiote would be like a more Lovecraftian, like eldritch horror version of the symbiote.
Right.
And so when it attaches itself to Peter, he'd have like this very spiky, protruding looking suit, and Miles has a similar looking suit, but it's like more uniform, and it had these different colorways. There was like a teal colored one, there was an orange one, an all black one, and then like a really punchy red one. I had names for all of them that are still in my Google Drive, but if anyone's listening to this I highly recommend you go see that. I think it's like at the third quarter, or yeah, third la- the last portion of that video.
Yeah.
But back to the main point. I'd really like to do this exercise again. Maybe just finding something a little bit more niche like that, where we still have to keep in mind of things like aesthetics and motives and themes and stuff like that.
Like
and,
not drifting too far off of what the premise
yeah, because
is
like
supposed to
sure
be.
you could do that with anything, like like create your own Iron Man or create your own Spider-Man, but
Yeah.
like what's cool about The Crow is that there's very specific themes to hone in on, like the revenge and true love and like endless bonds and
Yeah.
stuff, and like the bittersweet endings, and then aesthetics, setting, so on and so forth.
Right.
So it'd be cool to come up with a similar thing and do this exercise again. Maybe being a little bit more thorough, so we have more to say about each story. But
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun.
The only reason why I wouldn't give out too much information is just in case it has the potential to actually become something.
It's like if someone wants to buy my story, I don't mind embellishing a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
All right, Brandon, I think that about does it for today.
E-dog.
For those listeners that are still here, we greatly appreciate it. You can listen to us here, or you can listen to us on Spotify. Word of mouth is a great way for new listeners to come listen to two guys ramble about random stuff and sometimes nerdy stuff.
Sometimes.
And most of the time, all the time, always. All hail Darkseid. Whatchamacallit?
Said it.
And
He's listening.
a like or comment is greatly appreciated. Subscribing and hitting that notification bell is obviously the best way to keep in touch and making sure you're up to date with all the new posts. Leaving a rating or review on Spotify is also greatly appreciated. And yeah, Brandon, it was nice talking to you.
It's not talking to you.
And we will see you guys later.
Caw.
Okay, peace.
See you. Peace.